Welcome to another episode of A Fine Human, the podcast. Today I have a fine human named Chelsea Leyland who will be joining us. She's the co-founder of Looni, and we're going to be talking everything about endometriosis. We're going to be talking about epilepsy, the power of cannabis, and what it's like being a mom running a stressful wellness business. Welcome to another chilly episode of A Fine Human, a podcast where I have a fine people on the show. And today we're joined by Chelsea Leyland, founder of Looni. Co-founder or founder?
Co-founder.
Co-founder. And I'm just really excited to have her here to talk women's health, motherhood, sex, all of that. Do you think you can get a start? How did you start your brand and why?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the show.
And it's chilly out, hence the ski suit. Well, you showed up in a ski suit, so I just wanted to match your vibe.
We are both wearing ski suits, and I did just admit to everyone in the room that I actually have never been skiing.
I was like, I love you, Wagner, and you were like, I don't even know.
Like, what's a Wagner? All I know is that I discovered last winter that wearing a ski suit was the way to nail New York winters.
I didn't even know that. This is like a technical ski suit, so it probably wouldn't even keep me that warm.
And I might need to start to take mine off because it's quite warm in here.
Yeah.
Looni. So Looni is a hormonal health and wellness brand and company. My co-founder, Tatiana Steele, the other half of Looni, is, what makes us whole. Started Looni really very much came from a long journey and really painful experience with endometriosis. That was very much the catalyst and the seeds that planted Looni. I struggled a lot from pretty much mid to late teens.
How long did it take to get diagnosed?
10 years.
Isn't that
on par with the average diagnosis time, which is, crazy. And I always say this, but when you meet other, endo warriors, their stories mostly match up. Like it tracks the 10-year average diagnosis time. And it's unfortunate that it's taking so long for people to actually discover that they have endometriosis. But, that was very much the case for me. Many, many years of really severe pain. I was passing out. I was vomiting. I had pain during sex. I had really bad skin issues. I've been struggling a lot with hormonal acne. I had signs of, PMDD additionally. And every time I went to my general practitioner, my OB, it was always the same attitude, which was dismissive, but really this is just part and parcel of being a woman. Be on your way,
passing out.
Yeah, take birth control, take synthetic hormones, then suppress your period and you won't experience pain. And I was adamant that I wouldn't take birth control because I was already taking pharmaceutical drugs for my epilepsy.
Mm-hmm.
So for some reason, that just really, really didn't fly with me. And the other option, the way that they eventually offered me was a laparoscopic procedure to diagnose the condition. But prior to that, it was really just pain medicine. And thank goodness I grew up in the UK and wasn't here, because if I was here, I would probably be prescribed far more intense and addictive pain meds than I was prescribed in England. But yeah, I just, I tried to suck it up, and I just remember feeling, this can't be normal. This cannot be normal. And it carried on like that for a while, and I would be hospitalized. And when I was hospitalized, I'd be given some Valium and kept there until, the pain passed, and again, sent on my way and just told I had painful periods. And then eventually my gynecologist offered me a lap and said that she didn't think I had endometriosis, but because I was so adamant that I thought I might, she would
do it
and see. And of course I, was covered in it.
Why was she so certain that you didn't? How can you know if someone does it? Like,
I mean, I like to say that, first of all, this was over 10 years ago.
And I do think things have been changing, and they just came out with like a blood test. Didn't they just come? Isn't there some new test? I don't know the details. I know it from Instagram.
Well, actually, that gives me an opportunity to talk about this incredible company, which I think you might be talking about, who I've been helping to support their study that they're doing right now called Next-Gen Jane.
Okay.
And they have the ability to identify endometriosis from menstrual blood, as well as different markers that relate to issues around infertility. And so for anyone that's listening, I mean, you can, I share the criteria a lot, but you can go to the Next-Gen website, but you can have endometriosis, you haven't had a lap in the last year, either you've been diagnosed through imaging or suspected regrowth of endometriosis after already having a lap. And also if you've been struggling with infertility, so been trying to conceive for more than a year, if you are 35 plus, if you're under 35, have been struggling for 6 months, or like someone like myself, have experienced a recurrent miscarriage. So if you fall under that bucket, they are collecting samples. It's so easy, honestly. I keep telling people it's the best 10 minutes that you can give of your time. It is as simple as, we send people a kit. It's you put a tampon in, we collect the used tampon, you get paid an Amazon $25 gift card per tampon. And it is such an incredible, meaningful way to ultimately, hopefully, change the course of women's health for the next generation. Hence the fact that it's called Next-Gen Jane. This will be incredible to be able to identify and diagnose this condition through menstrual blood, as simple as wearing a tampon, as opposed to having to essentially cut a woman open to tell her that,
scrape parts of you out.
It's crazy.
It is, yeah.
But anyway, back to your point, we are moving into a place where there are good physicians out there and who are diagnosing it through just symptoms. Like if somebody is going to their physician and saying that they are passing out.
Passing out can't be fucking normal.
If someone is, passing out from period pain, is having any extreme chronic pain where they are unable to go to school, go to work, they're bleeding through a tampon very quickly, they're shaking from the pain, they're having pain during intercourse, their moods are so low that they're struggling to get out of bed, it's impacting their relationships, they're covered in hormonal acne. These are all symptoms that there is something wrong. And I think, one of the fundamental issues is that we've just normalized pain and extreme discomfort for women, for so long. And so, back to my story, as you can probably tell, very passionate endometriosis, women's health advocate, but I experienced a lot of chronic pain and really, really suffered with my cycles. I used to live in fear of starting my period each month in the night, because if I started my period in the night, it meant that I couldn't get a hold of the pain, because my pain would often kick in as soon as I would start to bleed and menstruate. And so it would allow me to quickly go and take a ton of pain medicine. Whereas if I would start in the night,
you would wake up.
Yeah. And then it was oh my gosh, am I going to end up in hospital? Am I going to, be sort of lying on the bathroom floor?
I just can't get over that you were ending up in a hospital and they were still I don't think that that's what it is.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And I wish my story was unique, but I could hand you 20 women in a flash today and put them on your podcast and they will probably tell you that they waited that long.
What percentage of women have endometriosis?
So 1 in 10.
Really?
But they, it's funny. I was just listening to a podcast yesterday with this incredible doctor, Dr. Thais, I'm going to butcher her last name. I think her name's Dr. Thais Alabami, and she's an incredible endo specialist surgeon, really trying to educate other surgeons on actually how to remove the lesions. And she was saying that, I think it's closer to 20% of women
Because if they're not diagnosing it, then like how, yeah.
They're not diagnosing it. And I think, again, I come back to this like idea of like normalizing pain for women means that when, a girl starts menstruating at, 11, 12, 13, 14, and she starts experiencing these symptoms, she's going to think these symptoms are normal.
Yeah.
So she's not going to go to her doctor. It's going to take a while to probably even walk through the door and say like, hey, I've got something wrong with me. Like, we hear of like women in our community who start to totally question their own sanity. And like before they're going in for a surgery, start saying, I actually wondered if I even had it because I was just told and dismissed for so long. But anyway, my journey with endo really pushed me towards starting this company. And I think that was because I had the surgery, 6 months of relief, then it came back with vengeance. I had a different type of pain. It sort of moved closer to my rectum. So I was just getting this like very intense pain in my ass and continued to have pain during sex. And so I was like, okay, surgery didn't work. Now what? Going back to the drawing board, same thing. You can take synthetic hormones. I was like, I don't want to do that. And that's when I discovered cannabinoids and cannabis for my endometriosis because it was helping me so much with my epilepsy. And I had started to notice a big improvement when I started using it for my epilepsy, but then decided to go deeper and started using it topically and started using it intravaginally and then started using it in anticipation of starting my bleed. And then that took my pain from, it kept improving. And I think that was the sort of a journey of just deep healing and understanding, learning about my body, learning about hormonal health and understanding that I had a lot more control over my healing than I thought I did.
That's really nice. And cannabinoids it's not just THC, right? It's CBD. So like, does that Looni, do you guys make topical things? When I think of Looni, I think of supplements.
Yeah, we just launched a topical, which is really exciting.
That is exciting.
It's called The Rub and it's a topical relief balm. And it's a sort of hybrid of like a cream and a salve. It's like a really luxurious butter. It doesn't contain cannabinoids, but we started Looni and now I feel like I've been rambling, but I'm coming full circle here.
You've not been rambling.
We started Looni by developing a cannabinoid suppository, and that's where Looni started and where Looni began. And unfortunately, we were not able to bring that product to market and ended up pivoting from cannabinoids.
Why weren't you able to bring it to market?
We weren't able to bring it to market. Well, the cannabinoid piece, unfortunately, was a real challenge.
Yeah.
As you know, the industry imploded, which was really, really sad.
Yeah.
We were seeing companies with these crazy valuations. It was a real bubble. Everyone was investing in it. And it just burst. And that sort of rippled out and impacted everything. Quality of products, the ability for physicians to prescribe it.
It's just really unfortunate because it is such a healing ingredient. And just, I don't know, watching the way capitalism can actually destroy innovation is really sad. It's like the opposite of what it's supposed to do. But of course, it's not perfect. That plus also the government. And I was wondering if it had anything to do with advertising and if that was also like
100%. Like we ended up speaking to, we knew we wanted to go into retail eventually. And so, we started to look into how places like Sephora and the stance they were taking on cannabinoid products or products using cannabinoids, and people were just moving away from it. And it was becoming stricter and stricter. First, it was like, okay.
It's just a headache at the end of the day. So even if it's worth it and healing, a lot of these places just don't want to touch it. I mean,
it's really sad. It's really sad. And at the time, it was incredibly sad just because it had been such a big part of my journey and of my healing.
And it was so helpful.
So helpful. I'd been doing a lot of advocacy work around medicinal use because my older sister, who's also epileptic but has very severe epilepsy, she has, tonic-clonic seizures, and she can have like 70 seizures a day. And my sister lives in the UK at the National Society of Epilepsy, has round-the-clock care, has been having seizures since she was a baby, has severe frontal lobe brain damage. And, I had this incredible result using cannabinoids for my epilepsy. It had ultimately been a more effective and efficacious medicine for me than my traditional anticonvulsants.
Really?
Yeah. And so, and I was speaking to these amazing doctors. I ended up producing a documentary about epilepsy and cannabis. And I was speaking to...
was it just like smoking weed or
No. So it's really interesting with my condition and epilepsy is I have to be so careful because THC can cause seizures for me.
Okay.
CBD is very therapeutic.
Okay.
In combination, in the right ratio with the right terpenes, the combination of the CBD and THC can be very, very effective.
Okay.
However, what I use, so it's a kind of twofold. I'll use a 1-to-1 CBD THC ratio.
Okay.
I cannot use any more THC. It has to be in the equal balance and respond well to like terpenes like linalool, which is, incredible terpene found in lavender, for example.
Mm-hmm.
You know about this. Something like limonene. Am I saying it correctly?
I don't know.
Yeah, limonene, which is found in lemons, which is kind of tends to be more like uplifting, can do the opposite for someone with epilepsy. But again, in combination with something like linalool, can be anticonvulsant. So it's such a...
terpenes. I would just be like,
so
oh my God. I'm
like,
I can't even, there's so much to know.
There's so much to know. And it's so... Again, the power of plants and plant medicine is crazy how like you take these specific compounds and molecules and like isolate them and they might have one impact, but then together synergistically, they have this other impact. And so for me, 1-to-1 is incredibly calming. It's anticonvulsant, which means anti-seizure, helps me sleep, helps me quieten down my mind, helps me with my digestion, helps me with anxiety, with depression. But if you just handed me something that...
but you like gummies or do you eat it or you like...
Vape.
And when you were younger, is that also like, did vapes... I mean, vapes existed, but I remember they were like... They were not the same vapes. I had like a...
Right, a big one.
Crazy thing.
I could never do those big things. It's interesting for me because I think back to like when I was younger and I did use cannabis like recreationally, but like I always preferred hash because it made me feel like less weird. But I definitely had many moments where somebody gave me like an edible or someone would pass me a joint and I would sit there wondering if I was going to have a seizure.
Yeah.
And
that's
I felt
scary.
and I felt like very much not good. And that's why it's so interesting when you talk to people about cannabis who are like, oh no, it never agreed with me. I tried it when I was young. I'm like, you probably just haven't found
the right combo or because it's like saying you tried wine. Did you try red wine or white wine? Like there's
orange wine,
like there's
and I
so
do believe
many.
there are some people who just like absolutely shouldn't for many, many reasons, whether that's like addiction or whether that's they've got a predisposition to psychosis or schizophrenia or something. And so, they really want to stay away from that. I think that's really sensible. I think we've got into a place where we're so sort of like pro, like, psilocybin and cannabis that we think it works for everyone. There are a percentage of people that obviously doesn't work. But it is interesting how I think a lot of the time people just haven't found their strain or the right blend for them.
Well, I also think even like like what's really cool to me about psilocybin or some of the plant medicine is that they are finding people like it creates more, what's the word I'm looking at? Neuroplasticity, right? So some people really like have these profound experiences that cure them from OCD or addiction. And, therapy is not great at having long-term solutions. So that's really exciting, yes. But there are definitely people who are addicted to ayahuasca, who are just 100%. Going to have the experience and they become like just any of these things can be medicine and the medicine can also become a drug. I mean, one is the same fucking thing. I don't like the language is so interesting.
No, it's so true.
but it's just kind of how you relate to it and how you use it and how you really integrate it into your life. And if you're like taking the lessons from it, or if it's really healing for you and that medicine.
And the environment in which you take it.
Yeah. And for me, it's hard to know, honestly. I definitely have moments where like I need to like just stop and take a break just to be like, is this medicine or am I dipping out? Or like just to kind of reconnect with it because I love weed. She my girl. And yeah, I don't think it's like something I would recommend for everybody. But you know what? I mean, I just think alcohol is the worst, especially for like anxiety and things like that. Yeah, for me, that's like my personal experience.
I think like being intentional is everything. Like even if, whether that's, whatever your like your thing is, your vice, your tipple, whether that's a couple of glasses of wine, whether that's, your morning coffee, like all of these things can become out of balance, particularly when you've got tendencies towards OCD, addiction, you using them like medicinally, but then, there's a bit of a fine line there too. And like using them as like coping mechanisms. And I really believe that when you give the body a bit of a break, whether that's like, I'm going to try and drink less caffeine for the next week.
Which, by the way, I think caffeine is hands down like America's addiction.
Like 100%.
And nobody really thinks of it as a drug. And it's
100%. But I think then like there's something to be said for giving something a little bit of a break. It could be a 5-day break. It could be, for a couple of weeks, because then you can revisit in a more intentional way and you like resensitize your body, and then suddenly you're like, oh, I don't like, whenever I stop drinking and give alcohol a break and then I go back to it, I'm like, wow, I really only need just like that one glass to,
Yeah, I feel that way with weed too. You just take that one puff too and you're like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
But I mean, after my first pregnancy, when I smoked weed again for the first time, it actually has kind of made it a little bit harder because it really reaffirmed how much I enjoy it. And I was just like so giggly and joyful, and I felt good in a way I hadn't felt in a while. And then I found with my second pregnancy that made it harder to stop. Like I found it like
when you were pregnant
for the second time, I definitely was like, oh, it almost coming back to it, like taking a break, which is also so powerful just to know you can. So powerful. I think though my second time I was like, no, I'm I'm a happier, better, like I know it for sure. Even though I don't know why, because also it was so easy the first time to just stop and put it down. So, but I remember just coming back to it and being like, this is my girl. Like this is the plan. Like this is,
it just works for your system.
This just works for me. Yeah. This like really helps me like at the end of the day. And honestly, I actually really love like getting into a good spreadsheet. Like if I was, like I love
whatever works for you.
Like I love working.
Yeah.
So I found that in some ways that coming back to it and getting so reassured in my connection with it made it a little bit harder in my second.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. I wish that wasn't true.
But do you think in the first that you stopped because you felt a little nauseous and stuff, and maybe in the second it didn't have that impact on you and maybe it was more?
No, I stopped. The first was just really easy. I stopped. The second one, I was just actually like, I wasn't that nauseous. This time I've been very nauseous.
Congrats, by the way.
Thank you. But in the second one, I had a lot of pain and I got really depressed. And that was really hard for me. I felt really sad.
In the second,
I'm starting to have some discomfort in my left side, but I was having a lot of groin pain, and I had never really had chronic pain before.
Yeah.
And I do think this is like a weird thing to say. I think that pregnancy can give you this like, I remember like this is a glimpse into what it's like to have chronic pain. And I felt really grateful because I, you can't experience that like to And it's really amazing to know that it's going to end, even though it kind of ends. You know, I definitely still had that growing pain a little bit, but it dissipated a lot. But it gave me like wears you down. Like the daily pain really wore me down to the point where I remember one moment where I was just like crying on the subway. Oh my God. Crying on the subway because I was just like in pain and like really like kind of coming to it and how it had been like just a lot and like just constant. And also just like grinding through it. It's like easier. There's something easier about being like, oh, something happened and it hurts. And like, I know what happened.
Yeah. Than just the sort of intense
like every day. Yeah. And it makes you tired. It made me so tired. And I think that's also what made me feel really sad. Okay. You wrote a little Substack recently about weed and pregnancy. I didn't read it because I knew you were coming. And I was like, I want to hear about it. Did you smoke during your pregnancy? And I don't know if you smoked. Again, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. I guess very rarely smoke actual joints. So I didn't even finish what I use normally, which is like I use the 1-to-1, the vape. And then I also will use like a CBD full spectrum tincture.
I know so many people are like, they drop it in their coffee in the morning or that's what they have. And they find it really powerful for anxiety, which I'm not really anxious. Like it's not.
So you have not needed it for that.
I should try it though, just because I'm curious, like, is it that CBD? I'd love to learn more about what parts of the plants are connecting with me.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll have a whole, we can do experiments. You could help me on that journey.
But yeah, because I use both, then I'd say in terms of like what I really need to survive, or I should say, you know, what I really need to manage my epilepsy and seizures is probably more so just making sure that I have the CBD. So for the longest time, when I first started using cannabis medicinally, I was just using CBD full spectrum. And that means full spectrum means that it contains like, you know, other elements of the plant. So it contains other terpenes, it contains other of the, you know, other cannabinoids, but predominantly it's like a CBD dominant.
Do you need it every day? I honestly also, even just listening to you and talking to you, I feel like this guilt around ever calling it medicine for me.
No, you cannot. Like everyone finds their own thing. Just because a doctor hasn't like recommended it doesn't mean, you know.
Yeah, but I also like don't think, I don't know, it is different.
Yeah.
It is like I don't know if you do
like, yeah, like, so I was telling someone this story actually, funnily enough.
Because you've been thinking about, sorry, you finished.
Yeah. Well, no, I just went to Cayman Islands, my Looni, my company, through a women's retreat there. And we were told that we had to be really careful bringing any cannabis-based products into the country, and that included CBD. And so I was like, should I risk it? Because usually I feel okay to travel with it because I've got my medical marijuana card. But yeah, you know, they made a real point to say like, you will sleep the night in the cell. And I had to declare a lot of products because we were launching our new product there. And so we were bringing a lot of like our supplement, our Balance Beam supplement and our rub in to sell at Palm Heights in their store, Dolores. And so I knew I was going to like go through my bag and blah, blah, blah. And thank God I decided not to. But my options were I cancel the trip, I come and risk it without medicine. And that was just like, when I was contemplating that, I was like, that was crazy. Anyway, luckily ended up finding out that you could get it on the island through a doctor for medicinal use. They just didn't want you bringing it in and out. So I got there a few days ago and they very much went through my bag and all of my cosmetics. And they asked me if I had anything with CBD in it, not THC, CBD, very strict. And then I left the airport and I went to the doctor, you know, got a prescription and I got a 1-to-1 vape pen and I used it there. But I was telling people the story that when I was probably about 8 years ago now, but I was offered this gig, a DJ gig in Bali. And it was kind of like this dream trip in this sort of, wellness focused, I guess like hotel, and they were doing this party, and it was like, I got to spend 4 days there, and I've never been to Bali, and everyone's always like, you would love Bali. And I had to cancel the trip. I couldn't go because I realized the risks of, potentially being put in jail for bringing any,
and you can't go 4 days.
And I can't, I wouldn't, the reason I wouldn't risk it, so I have gone 4 days without, but I will say that the environment, or like I have to feel that I'm kind of in good homeostasis. So by that, I mean like I'm well rested.
Yeah.
I'm not stressed.
Not DJing parties late night.
It's more the flight more than anything.
Oh, yeah. And
it's
then jet lag.
Yeah. It's the waking up early. It's the jet lag. So like having that, interruption with the circadian rhythm, that's what really messes me up. So yeah, I remember just making that decision back in the day with going to Bali, and I was just like so sad, but it wasn't worth it. But all that to say, I'm now in a point where I can go a few days without it, which is amazing for me because for many years I couldn't. So now I can go a few days without it, and I'm always like very chuffed. And my body tells me when I need it, but I'm lucky in the sense, well, I don't know if lucky is the right word, but I'm very sensitive. So I need a very small amount. And I'm like that with all medicines. I was like that when I took anticonvulsant medicines as well. And I'm like that with cannabis. Like my neurologist is always surprised how
little.
Yeah.
But that's cool. I think that's really powerful too. It's like,
yeah,
it's still pretty binary. You're either having episodes or you're not, right?
Exactly.
So it's working.
Yeah.
I just think that is really amazing.
But I wish I could be like you in the sense of I could just kind of smoke anything and just feel so good.
Yeah. I think I definitely have moments. I've had some moments where I'm like,
you're like, this is too
much.
Yeah.
I mean, not in a while, but I have a feeling after this pregnancy, I'll probably overdo it. I'll be like, look at this, I'm gonna smoke a whole joint. And
you've got a good constitution for cannabis.
Yes, I do. I would say I also feel pretty sensitive to things. Like I feel things quickly, but I've really enjoyed pushing my brain. I don't know if it's like healthy, but like I think of it kind of as like the gym for my brain. So if I'm like going through, if I'm having anxiety, if I'm having a bad experience with weed or a psychedelic, I can kind of quickly look at that as like an opportunity and like connect with my breath and figure out how I'm going to move through it. Mm-hmm. So
it's just fascinating. Like we're all so different, I had someone like very close to me who is like the opposite to that in the sense of just like has to be so careful, because it can like push them into a different space. And I just think it's just so interesting how, I guess like genetically, like we're all so different.
Yeah. I think it's genetics. I think it's a lot. Like just even
because cannabis psychosis is real. And one of the things I always say is like
people have full on hallucinations and
but more so in the sense of like, I think because cannabis is so amazing and such a like versatile plant, and it's such a complex plant, like it has so many things that it can be, like hemp can be made into fuel. It can be made into incredible clothing, like plastic like materials. Like it's just
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's really, really crazy.
Oh, like that papery, like no, those are rice. That's rice paper that I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Plastic like material.
Yeah, like plastic like materials. Like I hope we're gonna move into a place more where we'll see some of that, see more of that in like, our environment. But like, we have the ability, it has the ability to be like turned into like a really sort of like dense kind of material, like a sort of plastic material. Yeah. But anyway, I think, how did we get onto that?
I have no idea.
We were talking about hemp, the versatile plant, and
psychosis. And
psychosis.
Like, it's so powerful. It's powerful enough to put somebody in a state of psychosis.
But also, like, I think there's often a lot of. It's funny in America. I don't hear this conversation as much as I do in England, but I just do think it's so important when we talk about like how amazing the plant is and all the positive things to also say, and I know that I will be having these conversations like as my son gets older, it's just like to be really careful, because I know of a lot of people who use cannabis in their teenage years and they like didn't recover, you know, like, and the impact that it has particularly on the like young male adolescent brain, like Stacey.
Is it more in the male?
Yes.
I didn't really smoke in high school, which I think is really, I actually remember in high school getting into this debate with somebody where I was like pro alcohol and they were pro. I look back on that, I'm like, girl, you were wrong. You were so, but I was like a goody and the part where it was like illegal and one was legal. Like,
that's really funny.
Yeah, it's really funny to think about it now. And then in college is when I really kind of, but it still feels, but now I think about that and it's still too early. Did you see that new study? They're like, you're not really even an adult until you're 32.
Yes, I know. I kind of loved that. I was like, really?
I'm like,
wow, that makes sense.
It does make sense, but it's also, you know.
But I think it's like, Stacey Gruber, I think her name is. She was leading these studies on like the young adolescent brain and the impact that had, and it disproportionately impacts like young males negatively. And I think it's like before 16.
Yeah, I really wouldn't want my kids.
So I think it's important to have these conversations with your children.
Yeah.
And just say like, you don't know, like there's a history of depression in our family. Like, so you have to be careful. Like you just don't know the impact that these powerful plants can have on your,
I mean, in your life. But
anyway, I did use cannabis pregnant.
Did you?
I spoke to my doctor about it. I had a most incredible doctor, for anyone that's interested, Dr. Nabizadeh in New York out of Weill Cornell.
Okay.
Do you know her?
No, I don't. Okay. But that's
I just say that because like, there are a lot of people who like want to work with someone who's open-minded. And I was so scared that someone was going to try and put me back on.
And also they can take your kid away.
Yeah.
You know, like.
Yeah, it's very real. And again, I think something that, you know, being a white woman carries like a lot of privilege in that sense. Because I think if I was not, I would probably have had a lot more fear around that. And that's just like the sad like reality is that like I am coming from, you know, a place of privilege just because of the color of my skin. But I had this amazing doctor who didn't try to put me back on anticonvulsant medicine. And, you know, was like, this is what's working for you. Let's keep you on it. Let's try to limit THC as much as possible. So that's what I did. I mostly used a full spectrum CBD tincture, ingesting, and I didn't need it every day. I was really lucky because I think for me, like hormonally, pregnancy was like amazing for me. So I felt really, I was sleeping, apart from at the end, but I was sleeping well and I felt very stable. My health was stable. So I didn't even need to use it daily, but I predominantly used this like CBD full spectrum tincture. And then when I needed it, I would use a bit of my vape, which was CBD and THC. And then I did use also throughout my birth as well.
During the labor?
Yeah, in the hospital.
That's pretty cool. That's wild.
And before I went in for a C-section as well. Yeah. I managed to persuade like the 12 doctors, the team that all like huddled in my room to let me use it before I was going for a C-section, because they had this whole protocol that had been...
You had a planned C-section?
No, God, no. I did not have a planned one. I had an emergency one. So it was like 36 hours in.
Okay.
But I mean, they had this whole protocol that if I like started to have a seizure, what they were going to do. And
you were just like, look, guys.
Yeah, I was like, look, guys, like I have not taken any like anticonvulsant medicines for, you know, a very, very long time. Like, you know, almost 10 years. And so this is the medicine that works. I'm starting to feel funny. Like I was starting to feel really sleep deprived because I had been going for such a long time in and out of sleep. But like 36 hours is a long time. My body was exhausted. They were like wanting to take me in for a C-section. I was like, I need to sleep. Like I need to get some sleep. And they were like, you can't. We've got to get you in for an emergency C-section. So I was like, if you don't want me to have a seizure, you need to let me use like cannabis before I go in.
It's really cool that you ought to be so clear and open and like have the doctors on the same page with you. Or like, I think that's amazing.
I was really lucky, let's say that.
Yeah.
I was lucky to have such an open-minded team. And I was lucky because of, as I mentioned, like my privilege and everything. And yeah, it was the right move to keep me on what worked for me.
Yeah.
And totally. I think that,
I mean, I do think like I read the Substack header and I was like, I need to know more because where I'm at, but like, I do think you're pretty unique in your needs. It's not for everybody. Is CBG as like neurotoxic as THC? Do they have I know like cannabinoids are in your breast milk.
Yeah, exactly. Our endocannabinoids.
Yeah.
I think, it's so hard, isn't it? Because it's always like, we don't have enough studies on this.
Everything's like, we're not 100% sure that this is safe.
Yeah.
And I'm like, getting in a car is not 100% safe.
But also, and this is the way that my doctor framed it for me. She said, antidepressants, for example, like are considered safe during pregnancy. Like everything comes with a risk.
Yeah.
But it's like whether or not, it's like what are people making the like assessments over? They're looking at the clinical studies, right? They're looking at the clinical trials. Mm-hmm. And if the data's there to say it's safe, then it's considered safe. But for example, for me, like I continue to have seizures on the meds that I was on before cannabis. Like I've been seizure free since the moment, touch wood, I started using cannabis. Like, yeah.
Really amazing.
Yeah. So I'm like, I get like different types of seizures. I will occasionally
get lesions either. Have the lesions gone away? Like
what are those?
I know you're in endometriosis.
Oh, in endometriosis. Sorry. I was like,
no, what are lesions?
Epilepsy. I was like,
sorry, I switched back.
You switched back. No, that makes sense. That was me my brain was taking a while to compute. So I had a terrible surgery I mentioned when I was really young. Definitely didn't work. I think at the time they were doing, they were just like burning off the top layer as opposed to what you want them to do, which is now they actually like really tried to pull these like lesions out by the root.
They burn off the top layer.
They would just burn off the top layer.
And we love that.
And they just grow back. So that's why, a lot of the time, and even when you're pulling the lesions out from the root, they can still grow back. And that's why like endometriosis is an inflammatory condition. You got to keep the inflammation at bay. You've got to suppress the estrogen a lot of the time for people to stop it coming back.
You say estrogen. Estrogen?
Yeah, that's how we say
That's nice. I like it. Okay. You have to suppress your estrogen?
Yeah, like a lot of people have to go on that like hormone, suppression, like medication. And I think it's an autoimmune condition. Like you really have to do a lot more than just like having a surgery to get rid of it or to keep it.
Because it's like the surgery is just like a Band-Aid. Like it's not root cause. You're just taking off the thing that's most painful. But if you don't address the root cause, they're just going to come back.
Yeah. Like if you don't understand how to like manage it and what triggers it and what pushes you into more of a like inflammatory
and the
state.
CBD, like, and and your current medicine, which is, I guess, a blend. Does it address root cause? Are we like?
Well, CBD is incredible for inflammation. The THC is incredible for pain. My endo is now for the most part in remission. But I wouldn't put that all to cannabinoids by any means. Like it's such a like specific toolbox, I think. And that's really at Looni, what we're trying to do is like how do we help women establish a toolbox to managing their hormonal health? Not endo specifically, but like hormonal health. And so when I think about like the way that I approach living with, endo, it's really about like what's in my toolbox. And cannabinoids are in my toolbox. Many other botanicals are also in my toolbox. Like for example, the topical that we've just brought out has like a lot of anti-inflammatory botanicals in there, warming, soothing, like ginger, arnica. Mm-hmm. We have frankincense, really good for helping like, with blood stagnation. We've got St. John's wort, which is incredible for mood in there as well. And so there are so many other incredible botanicals. And I apply that topically when my tummy starts to distend and I start to feel that sort of pressure that builds up with my endo pain. Mindfulness has been incredible. Nutrition, trying to eat an anti-inflammatory diet where I can, just like tools for stress management, like mindfulness, like yoga, sleep, prioritizing sleep.
And you run a business.
And I run a business.
I found it very interesting to run a wellness business because running a business isn't very well. I think it's a real stressor. Having a kid then also has been a real stressor to figure that out. I'm kind of curious. Well, one, I was really trying to go to sex. I really wanted to know, do you still have painful sex? Or has sex become pleasurable for you again? Or not again?
Yeah. Well, I guess what's interesting, I mean, obviously like then
I got to hear about running a business.
I think sex, it's always like changing, right? It always sort of kind of ebbs and flows.
Which is really important. I kind of feel like that has been a good lesson for me as like this person that's like made their whole life about sex. Like I have periods where I'm not as horny. Like it just ebbs and flows.
I think like anyone who's had a child starts to learn that, or you just have to, right?
You have to learn that, yeah. Some people get really horny during their pregnancy.
Yeah, my sex drive was really high during my pregnancy.
Yeah.
Not in my first trimester.
But in the second trimester.
Second and third.
We're hoping.
Yeah,
we're ready.
That was very, very much the case. And what's really interesting for me is during pregnancy, I had no pain during sex.
I read somewhere too that pregnancy can also just really change your hormonal balance, your allergies, and that
I'm one of those people.
Yeah. And some people leave after a pregnancy and they're no longer allergic to certain things, and they kind of re-kickstart your system in some way.
For people with autoimmune, that can often really be the case. I mean, like I was telling you about my toolbox, but I think the place where I was kind of trying to like end up with that or lead to is that I haven't had any chronic like menstrual pain since I had my son.
Wow.
So for me, it's been completely transformative. Also just like emotionally as well. I was someone that got a lot more like anxiety and depression, teens, 20s, early 30s. And of course, like postpartum is tough and you're sleep deprived and there's a lot of lows that come with that. But I think, sort of across the board, my emotional well-being has dramatically improved since having a baby. I just don't get the lows. I don't get the same anxiety. And I menstruate without pain, which is just so crazy. But, there are women who have endo and have children and the pain never comes back. There are women who have children and they stop breastfeeding and the pain comes back and it's more intense than it was before. Mm-hmm. There are women who have children, don't have any pain, stop breastfeeding, and then 2 years after they stop breastfeeding, the endo pain comes back. Like we're all so different and we just don't know. So I'm now in this really interesting place where I'm just, what will be, will be. I've got very different tools to manage my health than I did before. And I've been super, super lucky to be out of pain for this long. Even things, you were talking about sensitivities. Like I was far more gluten intolerant before I had my baby. And now I don't eat a lot of it, but I'm a lot more okay with it and can sort of, my system can handle it a lot better than it did before
my bestie
baby.
is now lactose tolerant.
Really?
And she like got a shirt. She's like just pounding cheese now.
I love that.
She's always liked cheese, but she was pretty intolerant. Like, she had like lactate on her all the time. And I'm just like, I cannot, I'm like still waiting for it to kind of switch on her. Like, how can it be? Like, to me, it's like, so I know her, she is lactose intolerant, not anymore. And
it's so interesting.
It's amazing.
I'm trying to remember the correct terminology. I have to look it up for where the mother absorbs the cells of the baby. It begins with M. Anyone in the room got it? It's so incredibly...
And that is what triggers a lot of the healing?
We don't know if it's just that.
Yeah.
But that is something that's just so incredibly beautiful and profound. The fact that, ultimately, like, your baby is healing you because your baby's cells are mixing with yours.
But as you mentioned, it can go the other way.
It can go the other way.
It can go the other way, which I feel so, but it's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Still have time? 5 minutes? Oh my God. Tell me how you manage your life. How are you a mom working, and how do you still find time to do all those other things? Like, curious, like, do you have support?
I have, I mean, my son's in school 3 days a week, and then I have a nanny 2 days a week.
And so you can work 5 days pretty much?
Yeah, I work 5 days a week. I don't think, I think fundamentally, like there's no equality between men and women until we're giving women like childcare. Really.
Yeah.
I just will say that. I think that running a business and trying to work without any childcare is also impossible. And so it's really hard, to be able to figure that out. So I think like super lucky that I've had that level of support. And then I have less hours in the day to work in the way that I did before I had a kid, but I've learned to be a lot more productive in the time that I do have. That's been a real gift for me about having my son. I've definitely learned to just look at my to-do list. Yeah, to prioritization. Like, I think that's really, like, you hit the nail on the head. Like, it's very much that. Like, I just have such a better ability to prioritize what needs to be done. And then, like, figure it out. Like, I work, my son goes to school at 9 on the days he's at school. The nanny comes at 9 on those days. And he finishes school at 4. So those days are tough because it's like I've got to leave the house at, 3:45 to go and get him. And then he comes home, I've got to cook dinner. But usually, whether my day finishes then at 4 or 6, I will, on the days he's at school, my husband comes back at 6, we switch out, and then I'll start working again at 7, and my husband will put him down on those days. The days I have the nanny, she leaves at 6. So then she leaves at 6 to 8, we have fun, whatever, have supper, put him to bed. And then I usually try to start working again, like from 8, at least, even if I'm doing, maybe it's half an hour, maybe it's an hour, but I usually do try at least Monday to Wednesday to get a good few hours in after he goes down. But I will say that I never have enough time. I always want more time. I always feel like I'm not doing enough, but I've learned to give myself just be more like, have more grace around it.
Yeah, grace.
Because ultimately I have something in my life now that will always be more important than my work, even though it's close because I love my work and Looni is my baby. But when you have that love and that thing that is just will always like trump everything else.
Did that I remember being really scared of that. I was really scared to have something be more important than work. And I have ultimately found it really fulfilling and beautiful to have something, and also to have a reason to work, or
totally
like a different, but I don't know, everything you're saying really relates. I think that prioritization, I'm so much better at saying no to shit.
Totally.
I'm like, it's so much easier to just be like, no, I can't do that. I'm sorry.
Same.
And
also just like, I think I used to do a lot of like beating myself up, talking to myself really badly. I think that just sometimes being hard on yourself, I think can be part of being a driven and ambitious person, which I very much am. So I'm always like, there is this underlining feeling of like, you're not doing enough. You're never going to get to where you need to be unless you're like working until 3 a.m. But also like, I used to just like sit in bed and work till God knows what time. I just don't do that to myself anymore because I need to feel well to mother my son. I need to feel well because what's the point in trying to build a business if I'm not even a healthy person?
And a wellness business. I like, to me, every now and I'll have like a moment where I'm like, this business is making me feel really unwell. Like, that's so ironic. Like, I need to stop. Like, that is so not the intention. It's like not what we're trying to do.
It's hard.
It is really hard. And I don't know about you, but I also kind of love that I'm hard on myself.
Yeah.
I don't want to be too hard on myself, but
you also like that I'm totally the same.
Yeah. I like that I'm ambitious. I want, and I love seeing other women like want more and to do more.
It's why I love living in New York.
Yeah. Because there's a few of us. Yeah, it's nice. There's a lot of us. But then,
I always say you don't move to New York to fall in love.
You don't move. No one in here. That's true.
I mean, you might.
Just
but
probably
like,
not with a person.
Yeah.
Maybe. Do you have any like tips for new moms who are working moms?
Tips for new moms, working moms. I think sometimes the day you just have to go with it, right? You have to ride the wave because sometimes like your kid's home sick and it's such a busy day and it just like is really hard. And so I think it's just like the prioritization is everything. What is the thing that I absolutely have to do today? And where are the times I can figure it out? I think as having grace, just knowing that sometimes the things that we feel are so important and everything like it's usually not.
I feel like you're a graceful person. Yeah.
I try, but I don't know.
No. I feel like I have a little bit of grace. But
you have a lot of grace.
I have a little bit of grace. It's like there's a Seinfeld episode where I'll show it to you later. Anyway, thank you so much for coming on. It was such a joy and pleasure.
Thank you so much.
I don't know. I know your story, but really sitting here and listening to it, it is really amazing how much you've overcome and that you've like taken all of this pain and turned it into really powerful advocacy work.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Cool.
In our snowsuits.
In our snowsuits.